Hey everybody, it's Pete Renzulli. Welcome to today's Stock Trading Pro. In today's Stock Market Live, we got a lot to cover. We're actually going to start out with, I want to make sure that we have the reference point for everything that we're talking about today. So we're actually going to pull this up on the screen. Very, very important that today we're going to review the stock market power pyramid again. So everything we're about to talk about starts out with the market, work our way up to the sectors, work our way up to the industry groups, and then we're going to get some very specific stock picks, which is actually going to take us right into this list of stocks. So everything that we're about to talk about, we're going to start out with PayPal, talk about PayPal earnings, the fact that the activist investor got involved in PayPal stock recently. That already gave the stock a big boost. Now the stock reported earnings and is trading up over $100 as of this moment. We're also going to talk about some other stock picks in the same area as PayPal that might be a little bit expensive, over $100 for some people. So we're going to talk about one of the stocks that was one of the hottest stocks on Wall Street roughly 2 weeks ago. I think I was talking about it literally every day. So there's three other stocks similar to PayPal that we're going to give you some ideas on. We're going to work our way up the stock market power pyramid. We're going to do sector rotation. From sector rotation, we're going to take a look at the top two sectors that have the hottest stock picks right now. And then we're going to break down some stock picks for you so you have some ideas for the next week or so. We're also going to break down an old school stock that reported amazing earnings last week and has not stopped. It's actually really have what we call really well bid, where the market's been selling off intraday or even maybe for a day, and this stock is kind of hanging in there. Had a little bit of profit taking yesterday, but it's an old school stock I have not traded in a long time except for the last 2 weeks. Back in my watch list this week, and we're going to talk about a old school trading pattern. That's one of the top things that we do, which are the 4 stages of price action. One of the stocks that we have not traded in a while, the stock is something I normally never look at, which is it's less than $10. As a matter of fact, I think right now it's only $4. Not something I normally talk about, not something I normally trade, but it's showing perfect accumulation, which is churning in price action where it's stuck in a trading range, but volume expands during that trading range, and it shows signs that smart money is buying before the stock starts to rally. So we got a bunch of stuff to talk about today. I made sure I wrote everything down so I didn't forget it. The big sectors that we're going to talk about today, we're going to go right to the top of the list in the sector rotation, and then we're going to go into individual stocks within that those top 2 sectors. So stick around. I'll be back in just 1 second. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me here today, everybody. I really, really appreciate it. We got a lot to cover today. Obviously, everything that we talk about here today is for educational purposes only. It's up to you to make that final decision. It's my mission to help you make better decisions. If I do a good job today, if you could please do me a favor, make sure you hit that subscribe button if I've earned it. And especially if you like the kind of content we're talking about today, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. I just want to make sure I say hello to, hey, Brian O'Shea. How's it going, man? Good morning. Good morning. Derek. Both Derek and his son were in one of our boot camps recently. Love to see that. So we're just going to hop right into. We're going to get right into. We got a lot. You're going to want to watch this more than once and take notes. So we're going to hop right on over, and we're going to start out with PayPal. So this is the big thing. Instead of going straight to the news, I want to talk about PayPal. And if you don't know what this means, buy now, pay later. And if we take a quick look, first of all, take a look at the market, right? We're obviously making higher lows here. We're making higher highs here, and we got a really clean bull flag. The challenge with the bull flag right now in the market is that we are kind of stuck right there. So I just wanted to make sure, again, as we're going through the power pyramid, we're setting up the context. But PayPal is one that I want to talk about right now. And if we zoom this out just a little bit right here, again, very similar to what we talked about. You would think this $88 level would be a big resistance, right? But if you look over here, since earnings came out, it's up at 101 and change. So it's actually kind of like all the way up in that area. And now really the next level we're talking about is up in the 122 area. So that's interesting, right? Now, but the thing you got to be saying to yourself as we work our way up to the trade, we have order flow. Is it obvious? Yes. Is the current price action still valid? Yes. Is it close to the optimal entry for a new swing trade? No. So these are the things that we need to map out. Some of these ideas are for today. Some of these ideas are over the next week. So we always want to be prepping. There's ideas we're looking to go at right now, and then there's ideas that go into the watch list. Very, very important. You put them on your notepad or however you do that digitally inside of your trading platform. So PayPal, remember everything that we've been talking about with a lot of these earnings plays, and let's actually go back into some of the ideas from this week. And again, if we can keep an eye over here, let's actually go to Citigroup because I want to talk about this one from last week. Over here, after earnings came out on Citigroup, we had this big move to the upside. We said you need to map that out, put that in as your line in the sand, as how you're reading the tape. And you can see the following week after that, Citigroup, which was already not in an uptrend, it was really the first sign of it moving to the upside, still had a lot of legs to it, still had a lot of room to the next level, which you can see it kind of petered out over there. A little bit different here, PayPal. PayPal's already been in a rally. And if we really measure where the stock is right now, and let's just go from this big double bottom over here, the stock now at this point is up 47% in the last 2.5 weeks. That's a pretty big move. So I really, really like the idea in PayPal today, but the only way I'm going to be long this stock for the rest of the week, and long means being a buyer of that stock, is right now it's trading above 101. I'm really looking for it to trade over and stay above 100. If the stock stays above 100, I'm going to be looking for a shorter term trade, but not a longer term swing trade. So I might be dipping my toes in that stock basically between Wednesday and Friday, as long as it's above 100. If the stock pulls back and goes back below 100, might need just to see a little bit of profit taking on where we are right now. But what's super interesting about this, and you can see it's actually rallied, is the reason. It's their buy now, pay later volume surge, right? So as a top-notch trader, as somebody who's in the stock market like you are, it's 7:30 in the morning. Thank you so much for being here with me. Now your mind needs to start to think about what other stocks could positively be affected in the same area that PayPal is seeing a surge, and the reason for their good earnings to have happened. So we're going to take a look at some other ideas that do something similar, such as AFRM and two other stocks. So we're going to take a look at those guys. So we're going to take that off the screen, and we're going to take a look at here. AFRM, SoFi, and Marqeta. So you can see the stock symbols here, AFRM, SoFi, and Marqeta. So we're actually going to start out with Marqeta MQ, and we want to start to break these guys down. And you can see they're also surging. AFRM, if you remember, we've been talking about this stock here. This was a 45% move to the upside in AFRM. And SoFi is another one that's a little bit less expensive as well. Right down around the $6. You can see it's actually up 12% this morning as well. So as we start to work our way up the power pyramid, the very top of that power pyramid then becomes industry groups, stocks in the industry group, and then individual stocks. So now we have 4 different stocks that have institutional attention. Now those stocks go into our watch list, and now we look for our next trades. So because they've already rallied, remember, there's order flow, tape reading. Is it obvious? Is it still valid? But then that third piece is the optimal entry, which is where are we for the optimal entry for the time frame that we plan to hold the trade. So if we're looking at shorter time frame trades, maybe over the next 1 to 3 days, because they're a little bit extended, and let me just remind you what that looks like. So SoFi is actually up this morning. MQ is now the 5th day into the move, coming into resistance, which you can see here. There's a wall of sellers at 11. Wow, look at how obvious that is. So this stock needs to get above 1150. So this is what I mean about a short-term trade between here and here. And AFRM, okay? AFRM, actually, this is where we bought the last one. Now it looks like it needs to get through this area right here, which is roughly around $30. So it's roughly about 80 cents from that level. So out of all the stocks that I just looked at, MQ is kind of going sideways. So that still is near the optimal entry. AFRM is trading just above 29 with the resistance at 30. So for me now, off of the PayPal positive news that's lifting all of these stocks in the buy now, pay later, AFRM needs to get over 30. So that's going to be a 2-step trade where the first piece of the trade is on a breakout now, and then add only if it gets over 30. If it gets over 30 and the buying pressure that we saw here, here, and here comes back, then the next level I'm looking for is up very close to 50, which is up in that $48 area. So because there's an $18 potential move in AFRM, that means I'm going to build that position slowly as it moves up in that area. And that's very important to understand. And I think one of the things that a lot of traders make the mistake of doing is they all in on the first trade and on their first entry without giving the stock or the stock market a chance to give you feedback and tell you whether or not, okay, now is the time it's going to move. Because again, raise your hand. It's had this happen to me. You get in, you have the greatest idea in the world, you have too much share size, it kind of shakes you out a little bit, you get out of it, and then it does exactly what you expected. So let's work our way into those positions if we want to be smart, okay? Now, the one downside to this, we need to have both sides, right? We can't just cherry pick and say all the beautiful news about that PayPal exploded. The downside of these kind of ideas, and let's just go over those stocks again and talk about over here. The downside is with inflation starting to rise a little bit, right? And you can see that there's a possibility of these buy now, pay later, where people are not making their payments. So there's kind of like a dual thing right now, and we need to come up with a decision as traders for both PayPal stock, AFRM stock, MQ stock, and SoFi stock. What is the stronger likelihood of following through? People making payments versus one large sum. Which of those is more likely to happen right now? And I think a lot of people right now are borrowing, whether or not that's a good thing or not. PayPal has that no interest rates for 6 months. So I think that's probably why their buy now, pay later is going on. So you got to give both sides of the argument. How obvious are they? Is it still valid? And what is the optimal entry? So we just gave you, especially in the AFRM trade, a two-step trade looking for a possibility all the way up to $50. And PayPal stock needs to stay above 100. If it does not stay above 100, I'm not going to look for a new trade until it pulls back for a couple of days and then triggers the next move to the upside. So let's work our way a little bit further across the stock market power pyramid. And we're going to work our way over here. So you can see as the week is unfolding, this was coming into Monday. This is coming into Tuesday and now coming into Wednesday. What's interesting is I want you to look at this line over here from one day to the next, where there's definitely some chinks in the armor where basic materials as well as real estate and financial showed a little bit of weakness. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to focus over here. We're going to focus on technology stocks. Yeah, I'm sorry. We're going to focus on technology stocks and we're going to focus on industrial stocks. And the reason that I want to talk about industrial stocks, even though it's not at the top of the list, we get a lot of questions about that, is because every day in our community, we're watching these stocks like a hawk. We've been watching Boeing. We've been watching Caterpillar, which did not have good earnings yesterday, but prior to that had one of the biggest, strongest days. I believe it was last Thursday. So we're going to keep an eye on those. But the old school stock that I was talking about before was General Electric. So we're going to first talk about General Electric, and then we're going to go back into sector rotation. I want to give you a big list of stocks, and then we're going to talk about that stock that is only $4 that is showing that really awesome long-term pattern known as accumulation. I think John A. is on the call right now. He's very big on the 4 price patterns that we keep an eye on and the 4 phases of price action. So if we head on over and we go into industrial stocks, we're going to actually start out with General Electric. Now, if you notice over here, when GE reported earnings, it had a bullish gap, and you could have made a case that this level over here, the stock would have just met this and kind of melted back down the way it normally does, right? You can see it really hasn't been a bigger move in General Electric like this in a while. But the volume on this move has been pretty good. Look at the volume and the follow through. You can see this is what it normally does. Recently, it's been pretty good. You can see that it's got a really good clean push and a pause, a push and a pause. Now it's got a little bit of resistance here and probably a little bit more profitable up to this 93, 94 area up over here. So now the stock has actually paused for a few days, and you can see that's almost $20. So I want to be clear about this. I have not traded GE for a long time until earnings came out, which was roughly about 5 days ago. It kept coming up in my nightly scans where it was showing me above average volume, and showing relative strength to the market. So with the market, even on a couple of days where it pulled back or paused, or even intraday, if you happen to be reading the tape intraday, the market was going down. The market internals were showing some short-term bearish activity, and GE was just hanging in there like a rock. So again, I've been actively trading for the last 5 days. It's moved its way up into my daily rotation, quite honestly. And now it's going to be something I'm watching every day, because we get a lot of questions from people both here on YouTube as well as in our community. Can you just give me the stocks that are, I don't want to say easiest to trade because that's not the right way to say it, but the stocks that I have the most conviction in that are easier to read. In other words, they don't have a lot of back and forth. They kind of move quickly in the direction that you want. So which kind of takes us into a different stock that we've been trading very actively as well, which is AMD. So we got AMD and Airbnb got absolutely demolished last night after earnings. So I want to take a look at those and what kind of trade ideas we're looking at in those stocks. Now, both of those stocks got hit very hard, which now that means in my criteria, I'm looking to be a short seller of those stocks, the opposite of what we're looking at in PayPal. So PayPal had that big move to the upside and we're looking for it to stay above 100. These stocks, they pushed down, and after they push down, I need them to stay below that level where they opened today. So if we take a look at Airbnb and Airbnb and PayPal, you can see Airbnb is all the way down at 108, which is kind of like right down over here, which takes it now right at this level right here. So it's going to be interesting to see, does it hold the support or does it get back below here and retest that 90 level? So again, as long as it's below this level, I'm going to be looking for a short sale. Now, if you don't understand short selling, if it happens to be something that's new to you, it's basically betting on the stock going further down. A lot of people do that with options and they buy puts expecting it to go down. That might not be the best way to do it today, because when volatility expands, such as a big move like this overnight, the cost or the premium of those put options expands dramatically. So you're paying more for that because of that short-term volatility. Might not be the best idea, because the puts, even though you might be able to afford them, the premium expanded too much too soon in order to have a probability of profit in that direction. It's possible, but we want to do what's probable, not what's possible, which is why I'm looking to short sell the stock, not do it with put options. So Airbnb is one of them. And the other one, which is a stock that we've been trading very, very aggressively, is AMD. And you can see why. Very clearly making higher lows and really nice push, very clearly making higher highs, really good clean pushes and pauses. And now you can see the stock's down at 93 and change, which takes it kind of like right over there. Now, what's super interesting about this is AMD has been really bullish. The volume has been very strong. We've been getting some really amazing follow through to the upside. It's not a lock that this stock is going to open down and keep going down. And I'm going to show you another example from a stock that got smashed last week on earnings and then last 2 days rallied really, really hard, which is why it's very important to have those lines in the sand. And again, if you're new to the channel, one of the biggest things I can't stress enough to you is we're talking about ideas right now. Everything happens in the research. Everything happens being prepared before the market opens. And then when the market opens, and again, it doesn't matter if you're day trading or swing trading, you're just basically sitting back looking for ideas that are validated that you game plan for. So all the stuff we're talking about right now, the stock market power pyramid, working our way up to sectors, going into the groups, and then picking individual stocks, you owe it to yourself to do that outside of market hours, so that when the market opens, you're basically looking at your sheet. You're like, okay, I know exactly what I plan to do today. I know exactly what I plan to do this week, and there's no stress. So what we're talking about here today, hopefully, is giving you ideas on how to do your own preparation. If you want to learn about how I do this and get all of my ideas, including my entire strategy, we have a boot camp coming up. I believe it's in a week or so. If you want, you can learn about that below. It's a 14-day experience. So AMD, now here's the difference of what we're talking about here. Because AMD has been very strong, and we want to make sure that we're reading the tape and not just reading the headlines and automatically looking for a short sell. Wherever this stock opens up, and it looks like right now it's around 93 and change, 93.57, I'm going to be looking at that as the line in the sand. Because if you really visualize this, a push up and a pause, a push up and a pause, a push up, and now pulling back, that's a pretty healthy pullback. It was up at 101 yesterday as high, and now it's down near 93. So that's almost an $8 pullback in a stock that's been very strong. So there's a possibility that AMD is going to be a buying opportunity today, even despite the earnings that were not spectacular. So let's read the tape and let the price action tell us wherever it opens. If it's above that level, now we have a very good risk point, and we'll let the market tell us instead of guessing whether or not it's going to go back in that direction. Before we hop into the top two sectors that I'm going to watch today, which are technology and industrial stocks, I want to show you that stock that, and John's actually on the call right now, which is kind of cool. It's a stock that I don't normally watch. We haven't traded it in a long time, but it now meets the criteria. And again, this is a part of doing the scans at the end of the day, where you need to run scans that have certain type of price action in the stock market, certain type of volume in the stock market, and then you put those two things together, and that's a big part of tape reading. So the stock that I'm talking about right now is Tilray. And I really want to bring this picture together for you, which you can see here. And if we zoom this out just a little bit, obviously the stock has been in some pretty strong bearish order flow for a while. You can you can actually see how often and how long we've been working this stock, right? But what I want you to notice is here, this churning in price action over here and this increase in volume prior to earnings coming out. And then yesterday we had another pretty big day, and it's right around $4. So what generally happens in the accumulation stage is when you have a big move to the downside, the selling is typically heavier on the downside, and then the stock pauses. And during that pause, if volume is light, that means nothing changed. And then you can reasonably expect a continuation. But when you push down, start going sideways, and volume starts to get heavy, that means that somebody with a lot of money is now dipping their toes in and saying, okay, it's now at a price where we feel like we can start to accumulate some shares for a longer term potential move. Now, make no mistake about it. Tilray's earnings were not fantastic, but if you've been paying attention to the stock market and the current earnings season, there's a lot of stocks right now that had lower expectations, lower numbers compared to even a year ago. But because the expectations were so low, they beat those expectations, and the stock market is perceiving that as bullish news, and a lot of these stocks have been rallying. So remember, when we're looking at earnings, it's all about the expectation of future cash flows. So if we go back over here and we take a look at Tilray, you can really see, if I zoom this out a little bit, look at the expansion in volume here while the stock is going sideways, which is kind of interesting. And now if we kind of zoom this out just a little bit, you can see where the stock has come from. It's gotten beat up pretty good. Now, the challenge here has been it rallied and didn't hold, rallied and didn't hold, rallied and didn't hold, rallied and didn't hold. So what does that tell you about the smart way to potentially be looking at getting involved in Tilray? Now, again, I normally don't trade stocks under $10, but this price action and volume in that stock really is interesting to me right now. And I'm going to look to start building a position the same way the smart money does, where they're building it over time. If I get feedback and it moves higher, fine. I'm going to start to build a position as long as they hold the bid. So the biggest thing that should be in your mind right now, well, what does that look like? What does it mean that they're holding the bid? We can go right back into AMD stock. Even though they're not the same industry, we're looking at the price action, which is this. This is what it means to be holding the bid, where if we rally off the lows and hold higher than where we were, that's holding the bid. And then the smart money comes back in again, and you can see volume dropped here and then expanded again. So this is holding the bid where it doesn't come all the way back down here. So that's the kind of price action that we're looking at here. We would need to see it rally, hold the bid, and that's where we start to build the position. If you want to do it on the first time it's breaking out here, that's okay. That's up to you, but that's what we're looking for. Let's see. Hey, Don, how's it going? Tilray said they plan to be net profitable in 2023. So again, community involvement. Don, thank you so much for that. I really, really appreciate it. So that's something interesting. Is it something that's not necessarily in the normal radar of what we watch? But this is, again, I can't stress this enough. You guys see everything that I do here every single night. This is the kind of research that we're putting out every single day as a part of the community. And I'm giving this to the community every day because I want them to be prepared. So then we work our way over into the stocks that have stacked order flow. You can see that there's 45 stocks that meet that criteria. And look at how strong they have been over the last 5 days and over the last week. But this is another group of stocks here. Success leaves clues. The solar stocks, ENPH, all right, if you want, you can take a quick snapshot of the ENPH, Run, and Nova. And we're going to get into Plug in a second. Run and Nova, again, a group of stocks doing the same thing. So remember, we work our way up the stock market power pyramid. Now we're up just below individual stock picks. So there's the market, the sectors, the group of stocks within that sector, and then the individual stocks. So now in the solar group of stocks, we're talking about Run, Nova, and ENPH as now holding the bid after that really good news that came out last week. Let's go back over and now dive a little bit deeper into the sector rotation, because I wanted to show you some of the ideas that were here. So we're going to take a look at technology stocks, and we're going to take a look at industrial stocks. Now, the big thing that I want to give you a heads up on right now on these ideas specifically is that some of them are valid ideas right now and for the rest of the week. Some of them might need to pause based on how far they push. So hopefully now you have the mental framework that I just showed you, that when you're looking at new ideas, is it obvious? Is it still valid? And the third part is really important. How close is it to the optimal entry? So if we're up 5, 6, 7 days in a row, but we're obvious, that means that we're probably a little far from the optimal entry. So that would mean, for me personally, a little bit less initial share size, or I just wait for it to pull back a little bit. So I'm going to give you those ideas, and you probably want to write these guys down. Okay. So we're going to head on over, and we are going to take a look at some of these ideas in industrials. So we're going to start out with, actually, you know what? Plug, actually, at the top of the list. This is one of the ones I wanted to talk about as well, this is very similar to what we're looking at in EMPH, but the volume in Tilray was a little bit stronger. This is kind of interesting. We gapped up above this clear resistance level, and now we're kind of just sitting right at the next level. And what's kind of interesting is you could kind of map out the targets here, 23, 28 and change, and then 31. So we kind of have resistance levels every $3. So that kind of makes it a little bit easier. Now, what's interesting about Plug is yesterday was the optimal entry. Obviously, we had a bullish gap, held the gap, paused for 3 days, and this consolidated here basically for 3 days after the gap. So yesterday was the optimal entry, and now we have 23 to 26, maybe a little bit higher than that, maybe up in this area over here around 28. So we have roughly $4.50 up to that level. So I want to start to break these down a little bit more. So we're going into the power pyramid, and we're going to take a look at other industrial stocks. So Plug at the top of that list, BLDR, which had earnings. Again, you can see the big gap on earnings, and yesterday consolidated. So BLDR, this is what I'm going to be looking for in this idea right now. I'm looking for it to pull back to the $68 level before a new trade. And that $68 level is then going to translate into a trade up to roughly $10, up to 78. So what I want you to be thinking as we go through these ideas, and maybe you might have to watch the video one more time, some of them need to pause before the next push. Some of them have already paused and now are ready for the next push. So again, remember, the push and the pause. The pause is where we manage risk and determine profit potential. The push is where we get paid. So you got to really be on top of that when you're looking at some of your ideas. So I'm going to just go through these now, industrial stocks, and then we're going to break our way down into some tech stocks that meet the criteria. Then it's up to you to choose based on your goals, your resources, your trading objective, your risk tolerance, and your account size, which of these stocks might meet your personal ideas and your personal criteria to help you reach your goals. Okay. So Plug, BLDR, UPS had a really nice move. We spoke about this the other day. Now you can see it pushed and paused, and it's now paused for 2 days. So really we're looking at over 196, and look at all the room to go on if it gets above that level. Otis, interesting stock, right? Maybe not heard of this one before, but again, look at how many of these have this obvious level that the stock is struggling with that needs to get through. But if it can, then we're looking all the way up in this area, up in the mid 80s. Eaton Corp, ETN. Again, you can see the support, a push and a pause, a push and a pause. But again, you can see the level that we need to get through. Now, we don't want to guess. We wanted to get through that level before we do anything. Boeing, as I mentioned before, has been one of the top stocks that we've been trading. Boeing pulls back one more, and it looks like it's going to open up a little bit higher. So basically, it pulled back yesterday. This is the level we're looking at, somewhere around 163. So it's actually above 163. Now, normally this gap fill, which is where we actually stopped, would be the level, but right up in that area, 187-ish. So it still has another $20. Now, Caterpillar on the other side, this is the stock we were talking about last week and one of the more popular ones. You can see this really strong 3-week rally ahead of earnings, and earnings, they just got absolutely clobbered yesterday. So let's map this out now and this. So we also talked about the power pyramid, and moving up that list of the power pyramid was industrial stocks, right? And we just gave you a bunch of ideas that are still showing strength. I really like that UPS breakout. Caterpillar got clobbered after earnings, but the group, remember, going back to the stock market power pyramid, the group is strong. The opposite of what we did in the stocks that are gapping up, needing them to hold above that level. Now for Caterpillar, we're looking for the opposite. It went down, but now we have that level from where it opened after it went down. If it trades back above that level, you have to have an alert for Caterpillar to say, okay, it recovered that gap down. Now the buyers came back in, gave us feedback and said, okay, we're not done with this stock. We can't forget how strong it was last week and the prior 2 weeks. So I'm going to give you that price now, so you need to set an alert. So if we're taking a look at Caterpillar here, we're basically looking at this line right here, which is right around 188. So if this thing gets back up to 188, there's some room to go because we can't ignore this move. Okay, so giving you some breakdown. So now what we're going to do is we're going to break down and head on over into some technology stocks, which we just gave you a couple of them. We just gave you Run, we just gave you Nova, and we just gave you ENPH. So you can see now after these gap, and now it's holding the bid there, right? Another one that we've been watching quite a bit has been recently Coin, and you can see Coin actually consolidating here. Now, I want to be clear about this. I trade Bitcoin related stocks. I have not put one penny in Bitcoin yet because of all the reasons that we just recently read this week about hacks and the whole thing that's going on with Celsius and whatnot. Coin is very dramatically affected by the price of Bitcoin and crypto, and the more activity which they've recently rallied the Bitcoin itself. I think it got over 25 and change recently. That's going to affect it. So if you could just think about it, the more people that are going into the mall, the more that mall is going to be doing well. So in this case, the mall, a popular mall, is Coin, and Coin just recently broke out of this multi-day consolidation. So we're looking to see, can it stay out of this box right here? And the next target is going to be up here in this area. Okay, so we're going to work our way through some of the tech stocks. Now, Datadog is still coming off the bottom, and you can see it needs to get through this level. So really punching through 110 would be the next level. And you can see we got some minor resistance until we get all the way up to this bigger level up here. And some of the other ideas, we already talked about AFRM. Looking at that, you can see the target that we've mapped out there in AFRM. Shopify got beat up a little bit, but again, you can start to see you need to set these levels. Pretty obvious where this needs to get through. It needs to get through that 39 level, and it's not that far from there as well. So some of these beat up tech stocks are now consolidating, and look at that. Look at that gap fill. So we just gave you roughly 10 to 15 stocks starting out with PayPal today. We went over to General Electric, which is now in my list. We also talked about Tilray stocks. There's a bunch of ideas that we discussed today, but more importantly, I can't stress this enough. Learn to use the stock market power pyramid, because the more pieces of that pyramid that you have in your trade idea, the more conviction you should have in follow through, the more probability that it's going to keep moving in that direction. Does not mean they will absolutely move in that direction as soon as you buy it, but the probability is there, especially when you add more of those pieces. Some of these basic material stocks, industrial stocks have already rallied. We're looking for entries, and a lot of these tech stocks are kind of coming off the mat and looking for them to break out of these ranges. So if you missed that whole list of stocks, just rewind the video, go back a little bit, and you can keep an eye on those. So there's a bunch of stuff we talked about today. If you have any further questions about that, please do me a favor, leave a comment below the video. I'll be more than happy to get back to you as soon as I can. Keep an eye on that TLRY stock. That's going to be a super interesting one to watch over the next couple of months. Can it get back above $10? That would be kind of exciting. And if you have any further questions, leave them below the video, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. All right. If I did a good job today, if you could please do me a favor, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, and let me know that you enjoyed this kind of content. And I will see you again on Friday morning. Thanks so much for joining me today, everybody. I really, really appreciate it.